Now, this is an important conversation to be had as well. We've heard about the king has no clothes, but King Louis said, you know what? Not only should you have clothes, you got to have the right clothes.
Right
and
clothes.
there we go. I can't wait for this conversation. It's time for a chat with Pat.
Yes, and today our guest is Phillip Campbell. He is a history teacher for Homeschool Connections and author of many books on Catholic history, most notably the Story of Civilization series from Tan Books. And he resides in southern Michigan and wrote a story which I found fascinating. And it appeared in Catholic Exchange, an article called St. Louis IX's Advice for Propriety of Dress. Welcome, Phillip. How are you today?
Hi, good morning. Very glad to be here.
Oh, I love this article because you never think about them talking about these types of issues. I mean, like he was a king and involved in battles, and you would think there'd be all kinds of things going on, but yet this was. It was interesting to see that they too had confusion over appropriate dress. So, can you kind of tell us what was kind of going on? Tell the audience what was going on with St. Louis IX that this whole topic came up.
Yeah, it is interesting that debating propriety of dress is nothing new. This takes place in the mid-13th century in the court of King St. Louis IX of France, and he's having a little court dinner, a celebration, and many of his vassals and lords are there, and several of his lords get into a dispute over one lord is wearing a fur coat that looks to be nicer than the coat that the king is wearing, and he says to him, "Hey, it's not appropriate for you to be dressed better than the king. You're putting yourself in a higher station." And the gentleman says, "Well, I inherited these clothes as part of my father's estate, and this is part of my patrimony, et cetera, et cetera." And they draw the king into this conversation. And then there's this fascinating little scene where Louis and these guys are probably over some goblets of wine are having this argument over what is appropriate clothing. And the king ends up saying that he doesn't mind if the vessel is dressed better than him because it is according to his station. And then he gets into this interesting conversation about sort of the level of richness that we should have in our attire, and he ties it to what our standing is in society and also the impression that we want to give. And he lays out this wonderful rule of thumb where he says that you shouldn't dress so fancy that you appear ostentatious to the old, but you should dress nice enough to where you still impress the young. I thought that was just a very great rule of thumb from the king.
Yeah, and so as you look at that, because this is a real question, I think, for people today, like, what is appropriate dress for appropriate situations? And it seems to have changed a lot since when I was growing up. You kind of knew.
Yeah, well,
go ahead.
Well, one thing that really struck me from reading this account with King Louis is how back in the day, there used to be more of a, I don't want to say social stratification, but more social distinctions in the way you dress. Like there was such a thing as like working man's attire.
Right.
There was like a country gentleman attire. There was a noble attire. There was like different classes in society had almost different dress codes that went with them. So when you were out in the street, if you were of a certain station, you would dress a certain way, and you could see other people and recognize from their clothing, this person does this for a living, or this is their station in life. And what I've noticed nowadays is that's pretty much gone away.
Right.
Pretty much gone away. You can be at Walmart and there can be a guy in jeans and a polo shirt next to you, and that guy can be a millionaire, and
Right.
and you would never know. You can find people who have splurged and spent $1,000 on a very nice suit, but maybe they bought it on their credit card and they're terribly in debt, and you don't know anything about their station. You really can't tell much about people socially from their dress anymore, and that's such a difference from Louis IX's time. And I think that's why everybody's confused about what is appropriate attire.
Yeah, and I think part of the idea here that he lays out, right, is that you have to dress appropriately for your station in life, and yet there is a sense of balance and moderation. And I think I'm not sure since you wrote this, I'm really curious as to why do you think we have come to where we are in our society where that is kind of looked down upon? I mean, like if somebody's wealthy and they dress better than other people, people are kind of look at them like, oh, who do you think you are? How did we get to this? What
yeah,
do you think?
it really has turned around. And in Louis' time, there used to even be something called sumptuary laws that mandated by law that you had to dress according to your station. So if you were noble, you had to dress nice.
Wow.
And if you were commoner, you were forbidden from wearing certain things to pass yourself off as something you weren't. But I think what happened, I think this is a consequence of kind of like the march of democracy and egalitarianism, where we basically frown upon in society today any sort of distinctions between groups. We really, secular society really wants to believe that everybody is ultimately the same and that there's no meaningful distinctions. And so I think even mentioning things like, what is your station in life, like that question is probably implicitly insulting to some people to even consider. But I think it's just kind of our prevalent view of egalitarianism. There's no meaningful social distinctions. Everybody is exactly the same. And to me, that's where it comes from.
That's a great insight. So if someone, let's say somebody puts out there this idea, how do I know how I should dress? Right? What if I were trying to put King Louis' ideas, St. Louis of now, into my life? What are some of the things I might consider?
Yeah, well, it's very mired down in the particulars of our current state of fashion and whatnot.
Right.
We can't really lay out a whole dress code or something, but
right.
I think Louis' advice holds up remarkably well. You want to go out and you want to dress nice, you want to look presentable, but Louis says don't cross the line into ostentation. That is, you don't want people to raise their eyebrows at you and be like, oh my gosh, what is that guy wearing? Like, it looks so gaudy or it looks over the top. Like Louis says, dress nice, dress presentable, but don't cross the line into ostentation, especially something that older people would see and kind of shake their head at, right? Okay. He wants you to look impressive, but not over the top. And conversely, on the other end, he wants you to look nice enough that people do recognize and feel comfortable that you're dressed up. I dress up a lot just when I'm going out, like just go out to eat, go out to the store. And it's really nice how people will just say, "Oh, I love that you're dressing nice today." Like, "Oh, I love that out." Like they notice and they say something, and they're clearly pleased by it.
Right.
But it doesn't, come across as over the top or anything like that. So it's really just trying to make the effort to be presentable, to put some time investment into what you're wearing, but not going over the top and making it some kind of egocentric fashion statement.
Yeah, that is that sense of temperance, right? That we can kind of dress for attention on both ends, right? Being very ostentatious, or we can like look really slovenly. Which also, I mean, the idea of attention on the with youth today, a lot of times the things they wear aren't ostentatious, but they draw attention because they're dressed at the other end of the spectrum. So it's trying to find that middle ground, right? I love this article. Thanks so much, Phillip, for writing it, and have a good week ahead.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.